Welcome to HFY Stories. Please subscribe to the channel. Your one click means the world to me. The klaxon screamed for the third time in 90 seconds, and Vor watched a human throw his own spine into the path of 3 gel rounds meant for someone else. There was no time to call it heroism. There was only the sound, a wet triple thock against a ribcage, and Marcus Webb's knees buckling for exactly one heartbeat before he was upright again, already moving to shield the woman he'd just saved. Kira Chen didn't break stride. She pivoted around his shoulder like she'd rehearsed the collision 100 times, covering the gap he'd left in their formation before the dye had finished blooming across his jacket in 3 ugly violet stars. Vor's sensory stalks locked rigid. In 400 years of liaison work, no species had ever done that in front of him, taken a hit meant for someone else without so much as flinching first. How, Vor thought, did it come to this? 2 days earlier, nobody in that hall would have believed it possible. Vor had filed 1,000 reports nobody read, and the reflex trials on Meridian 7 were shaping up to be report 1001. Delegates from 11 worlds sat through demonstration after demonstration, the Velrans clocking response times so fast they barely registered as motion. The insectoid Corthian ambassador slicks preening through the whole affair like it was beneath his compound eyes to watch. Then the 2 humans walked in, and the room's mood curdled into amusement. Coordinator Brell read out the baseline numbers, 240, 220 milliseconds, and somewhere in the gallery, a Drana officer made a noise that needed no translation. Kira asked for 5 minutes to show something the machines didn't measure. Brell, visibly done with the whole species, granted it mostly to end the meeting faster. What she unpacked from the black case changed the temperature of the room. A board with a hand traced on it in charcoal and 5 knives. She laid her palm flat, fingers spread, and Marcus picked up the first blade like it weighed nothing. He started slow, tap, tap, wood between each finger, and then he wasn't slow anymore. The knife dissolved into a silver blur, striking in a pattern that reversed and doubled and skipped without warning, and Kira's hand never so much as trembled. A full minute of that, 90 seconds, the blade finally burying itself in the board between 2 unbloodied fingers. The hall didn't laugh this time. A Velran officer tried the pattern himself at half the speed and quit after 7 strikes, his claws shaking. This requires more than reflex, he admitted. It requires nerve. That was when Kira reached into the case and came out with a strip of black cloth. Same board, she said, tying it over her own eyes. Same rules, except now it's my hand, my aim, and I don't get to see either one. Brell actually rose out of his seat. This is self-mutilation, not demonstration. Waivers are signed, Marcus said, and didn't move to stop her. She picked up all 4 remaining knives in one fist and set her blindfolded face toward the board like she could still see it. The first strikes were slow, testing the geometry by feel. Then her hand found a rhythm and didn't lose it, blade after blade landing in the gaps between her fingers while she switched hands, doubled her tempo, let the sound climb into something like machine gun fire against the wood. 2.5 minutes of that, steel striking a fraction of an inch from bone, over and over, with nothing guiding the aim but muscle memory built somewhere Vor couldn't see. When she pulled the blindfold off and held up her hand, it was untouched, not a single mark. The silence that followed had weight to it. Vor felt it press against his carapace like changing cabin pressure. How is that possible? Brell finally managed. You keep doing something scared long enough, Kira said. Your hands stop asking your permission. It was Marcus who gave the room something to actually chew on. He didn't gloat. He turned, slow, meeting every set of eyes in the gallery, human and otherwise. You've been timing how fast our nerves fire, he said. That's not what makes us dangerous. What makes us dangerous is that we can make our bodies do exactly this while every instinct we have is screaming to pull away. We didn't evolve to be fast. We evolved to keep functioning when we're terrified, because the ones who didn't get to have children. A Corthian representative went to interrupt, some jab about parlor tricks, and it came out thin, unconvinced, and nobody backed him up. Vor stood up before he'd decided to. You didn't just survive your own evolution, he heard himself say. You built training around your fear instead of around your strength. That's not a party trick. That's a design philosophy. Kira caught his eye afterward and smiled like she'd been waiting for someone in the room to say it out loud. Come to training deck 5 tomorrow, she told him. Bring your recorder. Today was the easy part. Which was how Vor ended up back on that observation platform, 26 hours later, watching gel-round turrets carve red targeting lines across 5 human bodies standing in an open circle. The first 2 rounds had gone almost gently, a single turret, then 3, each human dodging with an economy of motion that looked less like reaction and more like knowing where a shot would land before the trigger fired. Marcus called it reading probability fields instead of dodging bullets. A Krev officer named Kvash watched with a stillness that Vor had learned meant a predator paying very close attention. Then Omar dialed the arena up to full chaos. 5 turrets, no pattern, pure randomness, and set all 5 humans loose together as a single unit instead of one at a time. For 2.5 minutes, they moved like water, finding the shape of a container nobody could see, each body compensating for the others without a word spoken between them, closing gaps, breaking sightlines, rotating through the crossfire like gears in a mechanism built from trust instead of metal. Vor's recorder caught every second of it and still wouldn't be able to explain it later. The footage would show 5 separate bodies. Nothing in it would show why they never collided, never left a seam. Then one turret misfired, dumping 3 rounds point-blank at Kira with no warning and no time to dodge. Marcus didn't calculate that one. He didn't have the half-second it would have taken to think it through. He simply put his own spine in front of it. That was the moment Vor had opened this story on, the thock of impact, the violet bloom spreading across a jacket, a woman who kept moving because she trusted the body that had just absorbed damage meant for her own. Vor would replay that half-second more than any other footage he'd ever recorded. Not because it was the fastest thing he'd seen, because it was the first time he'd watched a creature choose pain over hesitation, with no time left to choose anything else. When the klaxon finally died, Marcus wore 3 fresh bruises and Kira wore none, and General Kvash walked down onto the arena floor without waiting for an invitation. 40 years of military service, the Krev said, and I have never watched a unit trade injury for cohesion that cleanly. What are you people? Cargo pilots, Yuki said. Diplomats, a construction foreman. This isn't the top layer of what humans can produce. This is the floor we all start from. Kvash's mandibles clicked, something between disbelief and calculation. Then I would like Krev cadets trained by whoever taught you. Ambassador Threen arrived last, scales catching the overhead lights, and did something Vor had never once seen a Velrun do in council chambers. He inclined his head to a human. I misjudged your species by every measure I know how to take, he said. I would like that corrected on the record. By the time the delegates filed out, arguing in 9 languages about doctrine and neurology, and whether any of it could be replicated in a lab, Vor understood he wasn't going to file report 1001 after all. He was going to file the first report anyone on this station had actually finished reading. Kira found him near the exit, peeling the last of the marker dye from her sleeve, wincing when the fabric pulled against Marcus's bruised ribs beside her. You looked worried down there, she said, before he jumped. I was, Vor admitted. I didn't know your species could move like that without deciding to first. We didn't decide, Marcus said, testing his shoulder with a grimace. That's the part your instruments can't clock. By the time I knew I was moving, I was already in front of her. Vor looked at the 2 of them, dye-stained and bruised and entirely unbothered, and thought of every report he'd filed on this station that nobody had bothered to read. Reports about trade tariffs and translation errors and border disputes between species who'd stopped surprising each other centuries ago. I don't have a category for what you just showed me, he said. Good, Kira said, already walking toward the exit, already grinning back over her shoulder. Means you were paying attention. Vor watched them go, then looked down at his recorder, at the three violet stars frozen mid-bloom across Marcus Webb's back, and started drafting the only report of his career he suspected an entire council would actually read twice.